Every month for the past 3.5 years, we've shared our net worth update here on One Big Happy Life. And we've done that to encourage people to track their net worth, to normalize talking about money, and to show what a life that's built on a solid and balanced financial plan can look like. Every month, there are a few topics that questions come up about, like clockwork. And one of them is around the question of whether or not a car is an asset. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. Spoiler alert, yes, a car is an asset. Hi, I'm Tasha with One Big Happy Life, and we help you find balance, build wealth, and live happy. Everything that you need to create the life that you want. We have 3 adult drivers in our household, me, Joseph, and our daughter Alexis, who just turned 18 earlier this year. Joseph and I share our 2012 Dodge Journey and our 2015 Honda Fit, and then Alexis has a 2019 Hyundai Tucson, which also still has a car note. The other two are paid off. Every month, we always include all of our cars on our net worth updates. So we always get questions about whether or not a car is an asset. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about why a car is an asset and why it's important for you to know your car's value. And as a reminder, all of the financial information that I share here in One Big Happy Life, it's grounded in my own experience as a banking and finance attorney with almost a decade of experience working in consumer finance. First, let's talk about why this matters. So in the grand scheme of things, your car's value is only a tiny percentage of your overall net worth, especially as time passes and your net worth grows. So for example, we have just about $500,000 in investments and our car values add up to less than $40,000. So in the grand scheme of things, they're actually a very small percentage of our overall wealth, and that percentage will continue to decrease as our wealth increases. And the same is true for you. But why is it still important that we have this conversation and understand how this stuff works? So first of all, understanding how money works is an essential part of building wealth and actually being in full control of your money. When you rely on rules of thumb, you make it, yes, it seems easy in the moment, but when you don't understand the underlying financial principles, you're not actually able to make the best possible decision. You can only go with the rules of thumb. So yes, the whys behind everything that you do with your finances, that matters because you want to make sure that you're always making the best possible decision for you. And from a net worth calculation perspective, well, understanding whether or not a car is an asset comes into play as you're deciding whether or not to include it in your net worth. Now, let's take a moment to define exactly what an asset is. So an asset is anything that can be sold for money. So if it's worth anything, if you can sell it, it is an asset. An asset does not have to appreciate. In fact, assets can and do lose value over time. That's called depreciation, and that's perfectly normal. The fact that an asset depreciates does not make it not an asset. It just makes it a depreciating asset. So is a car an asset? The answer is yes. Here's how you know. You can sell a car for cash because cars have value. Lenders know cars have value, which is why you're able to get a car loan to buy the car, because when a lender gives you money to purchase a car, they take out what's known as a security interest in the car, meaning that if you don't pay the loan, they can repossess the car and then sell that car to satisfy what's left of the loan. So yes, cars are assets, cars have value, cars can be sold for money. That's why lenders are willing to give you money in order for you to buy a car. Also, another way that you know that cars have value is because in some states, cars are actually taxed as personal property. So you pay personal property tax based on the value of your car. In the same way that houses have value and houses are taxed by your local county or tax authority, cars are the same way in some jurisdictions because yes, cars have value and cars can be sold for money. Now, I know that we're talking about cars in the context of net worth and personal finance, but I think that it's also important to know the ways that your car's value can come into play beyond just personal finance and net worth, because we're going to get into some of the reasons why people say cars aren't assets in just a second, but you'll see that most of them just focus on personal finance. But cars are treated as assets outside of strictly normal personal finance considerations. So, for example, if you were going to get divorced, you would have to list out all of your assets to determine the equitable division of property. So, how your property should be divided between you and your ex. A car is an asset. You couldn't leave your car off of your list of assets because you were told by someone else that a car is not an asset. That's not true. A car is an asset. Another place where the value of your car can come up is, say, if you died and you left and your car became part of your estate. So if you have a will, you can bequeath your car to someone else, and you'll definitely consider the value of that car when you're deciding how to divide up your estate. But let's say that you died and you didn't have a will. Well, the car will become part of your estate, and someone is going to have to figure out the value of that car, because the value of the car, the asset, is part of your estate. It's part of the overall value of the estate. And other instances where the value of a car can come up, so tax liens. So if you owe taxes and your property is seized to pay back taxes, well, the value of your car can come into play there. It can also come into play if you're sued. So if someone sues you and there's a judgment in their favor and they're looking for property that they can attach the judgment to so that they can get the money that they're owed, well, your car will come into play there. Another instance where the value of your car as an asset comes into play is bankruptcy. So basically, your car is always treated as an asset by basically everyone. So it's really surprising that so many people in the personal finance sphere have adopted this narrative that a car is not an asset, because the truth is, in reality, outside of personal finance media and just like a small subsection of personal finance media, your car will always be treated as an asset. So if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and everyone else treats it like a duck, it's probably a duck. So why do people think that a car isn't an asset? Well, the truth is that once upon a time, someone else came up with a definition of what an asset is. And specifically, they decided that an asset isn't an asset if it doesn't produce income or if it actually costs you money. But as we've already talked about, that is not the definition of an asset. An asset doesn't have to produce income. It doesn't have to grow in value. In fact, there's actually a name for a type of asset that does produce income and does grow in value, and that's called an investment. So an investment is a type of asset that you expect to increase in value or that you expect to provide you an income. So once upon a time, someone mixed up the definition of asset and investment and said that all assets have to also be investments, but that's just not true. An asset is something that can be sold for value. But what happens is someone comes up with this fun and nifty way of thinking about investing and building wealth, and it sounds catchy and it sounds really clever, and so people repeat it, and it becomes sort of like this personal finance old wives' tale, but it's just not actually accurate. But okay, you might be thinking, well, Tasha, what is the harm in just telling yourself that a car isn't an asset and then like excluding it from your personal finance calculations? Number one, it stops you from understanding how cars are actually treated in the real world. So cars are treated as an asset in many different ways, including for your estate if you're no longer around. So it makes sense to fully understand your estate and the value that the cars contribute to the estate and the impact that cars have on your estate and on your overall financial picture. Say if you were to get divorced or if you were to get sued, than to pretend that they are something outside of your personal finance assets. It's just not accurate, and it doesn't help you make solid financial decisions. Another reason why it's important for you to understand that your car is an asset and then also know the value of that asset is because at some point in time, you will want to replace your car. And maybe you don't want to drive your car into the ground. Maybe you like to replace your car more frequently. And so you want to do a combination of trading your car in and then also building up a sinking fund so that if you want to, you can pay cash for your car. Well, the way that you know that you have enough money saved up is to understand the value of your car and then to also know, well, and then this is how much money I need to save up in order to buy the car that I want to have. Then the third reason, and probably, and one of the most important reasons, especially when it comes to your net worth, for why you should consider your car an asset and why you should know its value is because when you calculate your net worth, you're taking your assets and you're subtracting your debt. And so if you tell yourself that your car is not an asset, and so you exclude your car's value from the asset side of the calculation, but then you include the car's debt payment, the car note on the debt side, you actually have an inaccurate net worth calculation because the value of your car offsets the debt of the car. Because in theory, the car should be worth more than you owe. That's not always the case, but at the very least, it will offset some of it. So even if, let's say your car is only worth $15,000, but you have a $20,000 car note, the $15,000 value of your car will offset $15,000 worth of that debt in your net worth calculations. So really, you'll be negative $5,000. So how much you're upside down in the car loan, which is a very different thing than not including the car's value on your asset side at all, and then including the full $20,000 worth of debt. So then you look like you say have a negative $20,000 net worth when it should only be a negative $5,000 net worth. So to bring everything together, yes, a car is an asset. It is something that can be sold for cash. And in fact, when Joseph and I left Texas and moved to Philadelphia, we knew that we didn't need two cars. And so we sold one of our cars for cash and we went down to being a single car household. And I'm sure that you know of many people, or maybe you have traded in your car and gotten money for it, or sold your car and gotten money for it, right? Cars have value. Cars are assets. They're depreciating assets. Their value goes down over time for the most part, but they are still assets nonetheless. And the value of your car can come into play in many different areas of your life beyond your net worth. It comes into play with your estate if you were to pass away or become incapacitated, or if you get divorced. It comes into play if you are in some sort of civil lawsuit, if you file for bankruptcy, or if you just want to sell your car because you want to do something else with that money, you don't need that car anymore. There are lots of different areas in your life, different situations where the value of your car will come up, which is why it's so important that you understand that it is an asset that is available to you to use to meet your financial goals if need be. So just remember, when it comes to taking control of your money and making solid financial decisions, it is essential that you arm yourself with the best possible information and ask questions. Don't just follow rules of thumb because you don't know where that information came from, right? We all know old wives' tales and superstitions that have been passed down through generations that aren't actually based in reality. So with your personal finances, that is not the time to buy into rules of thumb without asking any sorts of questions.
Now, I know that you're here because you want to live your financial dream life, and one of the best places to start is with a 1-year spending plan. So head on over to onebighappylife.com/spending plan to download our free spending plan template and start taking control of your money.
So let me know what questions you have. I know that this was probably a lot, but I hope that you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Bye.